Hey guys, how's it going? It's Jay from Sony Alpha Lab, and what I got for you in this review is the Sigma 35mm f2 lens. Now this is a new lens. It's a DG-DN lens, so it's a high quality lens from Sigma. It's got a manual aperture ring, goes for about $640 US. And in this review, I'm gonna cover everything you need to know. So do me a favor, hit that thumbs up and let's just get right into it. All right, so here we are looking at the lens in hand here, and you can see the overall build quality and design is very nice. The lens feels pretty beefy. It's a lot of metal. You could hear and feel the metal, so it feels very rugged and sturdy. Like it feels like a solid lens. It's got a nice manual switch here for autofocus, manual focus, and this lens hood is metal, and it has like this nice gear type look to it, as you can see here. It's a really nice design. See the inside of it there? It's got ridges on the inside. And now here's just the lens itself, and you can see it has the manual aperture right here. So that's pretty sweet. And the auto is pretty good. That's a good lock into auto, so it's not really going to accidentally change too easily, which is nice. I like that. And the focus ring. Now this is unbelievable. This feels like a fluid ring or something. It feels like it's on fluid. It's so smooth and buttery. Excellent job on Sigma's part with that. It really feels amazing. It reminds me of like a Zeiss Batis lens, how good this focus ring feels when you turn it. And it's got a pinch style lens cap here. It also comes with a magnetic lens cap, as you can see here. So this guy just pops right on there like that. See that? Pretty cool, right? I'll just take it right off. You could use the magnetic cap or you can use the regular lens cap, either way. So looking at the front here, we have a 58mm filter thread. And it's got nice multi-coated lens element on the front. See, it got a nice 9 blade rounded aperture diaphragm. And also note how these are like geared. They have like a nice gear on them, which is pretty cool. Looking at it from the back, we have a nice large lens element to accommodate that f2 max aperture, and you can see it's nice all metal here. It has a nice rubber gasket as well, so this has nice weather sealing. This is a really well made lens. It feels like a little brick in the hand. It weighs 11.5 ounces or 325 grams. It's just a beefy little lens. I'm very impressed with the build quality in particular. So let me show you what it looks like on my A7C here. So it's got the white dot right there. You just got to line that up to the white dot on the camera, of course. Mount that up, and now you can see what it looks like on my A7C. Just zoom out a little bit. So you can see it looks pretty good. It's well balanced. It's a compact lens, fairly compact lens anyway, and it really does pair up nicely. It's a very high quality lens. Like I say, I really like the way the lens looks. I know that really doesn't matter in the real world. It's all about the image quality, but it does look cool, you got to admit. So that's what it looks like. Let me throw the lens hood on. Like so, and that's what it looks like with the lens hood. So you can see, it's a cool looking lens, and it's a very practical lens. Fairly affordable considering the quality. $640 US is the price point, and I think that's pretty fair for this lens. Although with the Sony 35mm f1.8 only being about $100 more, I think Sigma probably should have maybe lowered that to like $540. That would make this lens a little more appealing, because for $100 more, I would rather have the Sony lens. It's faster, it's lighter, it's smaller, it's more compact compared to this lens, but it doesn't look as cool as this lens. And this lens offers the manual aperture. So you might want that manual aperture ring, and the Sony lens does not offer that when compared to this lens. Let me just grab the Sony lens and show you. All right, so here's the Sony 35mm f1.8 lens, and you can see how much smaller it is. And it also has the manual focus and a button as well. It's customizable. So again, and this is really well made as well. It's a good quality lens, and I don't know, I would rather have the Sony lens over the Sigma lens, just based on my user experience. Image quality and so forth is very good on the Sigma lens. All right, so that's what it looks like in hand and mounted to my A7C. So let's go over some sample photos, shall we? Just a quick focus test, and the lens is pretty much silent. All right, guys, so here we are in the lab. This is what we're looking at with the scene here. And first thing I wanted to show you was just the distortion, pretty much, when I enable the lens profile. So here is the distortion that you can expect. So you can see it here. These are raw quality images, of course, and when you enable the profile, you can see how it stretches it out a little bit. It's not that bad, but there is definitely some distortion. And vignetting, of course, as you can see the darkening in the corner areas. So that's what we're looking at there. Now this is f2. If you look up here on the top left, the EXIF data is there. So you can see I was at f2, 1/60th of a second, ISO 100, and I was using my Sony a7C for the testing, which is 24 megapixels. So if I zoom in here to 100%, you can see wide open at f2, this lens is sharp, very, very sharp, all the way in the corners and everything. So that's fantastic. That's very impressive. I don't see any fringing or anything really either on the quarters. I don't see any purple or green or anything like that. Maybe just a tiny bit over here, but pretty much nothing. So that's very impressive. So this is actually f2.8. So let's look at that first. And you can see there it's pretty darn sharp, just like f2. It crisped up just a little bit more. You can see a little bit in the hairs here that it is a little bit sharper, but still wide open. It was very, very good. Now here's f4. And again, of course, it's just going to tack up a little bit more as the depth of field gets larger. And really, really crisp. Bokeh balls look very good. And if we go here, we're looking at f11. See the bokeh balls there getting a little smaller, but they still look good. f5.6, f8. Here's f22. And you can see f22 still looks pretty darn sharp as well. All right, so here's another test photo I wanted to show you, and I moved the camera back. So now I'm about 6 feet away from the lab scene. I just wanted to show you the distortion again so you can see it at a little bit more of a distance here. Now here's another focus test at the minimum focus distance, and you can just see how well it performs. It wasn't able to go from the background all the way to the quarter in one smooth motion though. It did pause for a second, as you can see here. Okay, so now looking at the minimum focus distance, check this out. All right, so you can see here the background looks very good. I really like the out of focus rendering that this lens produces. It's very nice. It's very pleasing to the eye. And it looks good. I mean, the bokeh balls are perfectly round. They look excellent. And the quarter here is very sharp, high contrast. I do see something right there on the bottom though. Let me go to 200%. You see this on the bottom, this like green little bit of a ghosting fringe or whatever that is. I see a little bit of it here on the tip of the boat. Also in the wilderness, I do see some fringing. There's a little bit of a purple pinkish color there. So it does have just a little bit of fringing at the minimum focus distance when testing with this quarter. So let me stop it down to f2.8. And again, you can still see a little bit of fringing here. There is a little bit of purple, pink, orangey looking fringing there. Let me go down to f4. All right, f4 pretty much tacks up really well. Bokeh balls still look very good. But I do still see a tiny bit of fringing. And then we get down to f5.6 and we're looking good. The fringing is pretty much gone and just excellent sharpness, contrast, and everything else. And you can see the bokeh balls still look very good. Background rendering is still very, very pleasing to the eye in my opinion. And if we just stop through here, go to f8, f11, f16, and f22. So that's what we're looking at with the minimum focus distance test. And you can see it looks pretty darn good. There, like I said, a little bit of fringing there, but otherwise pretty good. I mean, very sharp, and the colors and contrast are great. So let me just show you what the Sony 35mm f1.8 lens looks like. Now here is the 1.8 lens. The minimum focus distance for the Sony lens is 8.7 inches or 22 centimeters. So this is the Sony lens, and so I can get a little bit closer. And if I zoom in here to, let me go to 100% first. So at 100%, you could see how sharp the quarter is. It looks really good, and it definitely is a better performer than the Sigma in this regard. You can get closer and there is less fringing. If I go to 200%, you can see a little bit of fringing here. There is some purple right there. You can see like a pink. So now if I stop down to f2.8, you can see the fringing is most of the way gone on the Sony lens. It is still there just a little bit. And here it's pretty much gone at f4. So you could see the Sony lens performs really well, and I would say better than the Sigma for sure. And now look at the distortion on the Sony lens. It's got significantly less distortion than the Sigma lens. And it's also smaller and lighter weight as well. Although the Sony lens does cost about $100 more, I would say it's worth it based on the lab testing. So let's move on to some real world photos. And I'll show you what this sucker can do in the real world. Alrighty, so looking at some real world photos here. I did do a little bit of adjustments on some of these photos. And as you can see here on the right hand side, I jacked up the vibrance a little bit. I applied the lens profile correction. I actually have a preset that I use. I call it Punch 1 right here. And it's very simple. All it does is it basically applies the lens profile correction, and it also adds a medium contrast tone curve. And it also adds just a little bit of vibrance and backs off the highlights a little bit. And it gives me a good baseline for raw files in most scenarios. So I did apply that preset to most of these images, not all of them, you know, just so you can see what it would look like with a slight adjustment, because raw files are obviously a little flat. Here's the raw file straight off the camera, and here's what it looks like after my adjustments. And like I said, lens profile was done, tone curve, a little bit of vibrance, and backed off the highlights just a little bit, and that's the result. So moving on here, and also of course top left you have your EXIF info. So this was wide open at f2.0, and I was focusing on my parents' tree here in their front yard, and you can see, I mean, this lens really is beautiful. It pumps out some excellent image quality in my opinion. And here's just the flag in front of my parents' house. My dad just traded in his old truck for the new truck, so he got pretty much the same thing except the nicer model. Like you can see it here, it looks beautiful. I mean, just look at how sharp and crisp, I mean, vibrant and snappy. This is a really nice lens. I love the contrasty punch that it has. Here's another one, just pretty much minimum focus distance, and you can see there, looks really good. Background rendering is nice. Here's just another one of my dad's truck, and again, I love the bokeh rendering. Look at that, that looks cool. Got some cool effect there. Very, very nice. And this was on Easter, by the way, so we were just hanging out in the driveway. It was absolutely gorgeous out. And you can see here, it's a nice looking beer there in the glass. Looks good. Another one of the truck. Now here's looking at the back, you know, tonneau cover thing, whatever you call it. And the depth of field is pretty good, looking good. Highlights are controlled really well. You can see in the corners. Rendering looks good. Very high quality optics, I gotta say. This is an impressive lens. Look at that on Jace. Very sharp. f3.2. I mean, bright white shirt. I don't see any fringing on this at all. It looks excellent. I mean, that's really high quality control there. I was impressed by that, with the white in particular. Usually you'll see some lens flaws in that scenario, but not with this lens. Here's just one of my dad telling a story there. Here's my brother Chris. This is just a cool little bubble maker toy that Jace got. And here's one of Jace on the deck playing around. The background was extremely bright. And if you zoom in, you can see sharpness is excellent, focused on the eyes. And here's another one. Really like how these came out. I mean, these are really nice looking images in my opinion. I really like this one. Very sharp. Here's one of Jasmine. Now, I missed the focus on this one because I was in such a rush to get the shot, but I thought it was a pretty cool one. Such a cute dog. It's adorable, isn't she? Here's just the salt and pepper on the table, and again, background depth of field is killer. Had some nice steak for dinner here on Easter, so here's one at f2.0, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like when compared to f8. So that's f8, and that's f2.0, so you can see that depth of field play you can get with this lens. And here's another similar type shot here, f2. There's my plate. Here's an aerial view. See, it looks really good. I mean, look at that sharpness and quality. It's fantastic. Doesn't that biscuit look killer? And here's just a side profile angle. Again, this one is at f2 and now this one is at f4. So you can see that depth of field changed just a little bit. Here's another one of Jasmine. She's so cute. Here's another one there. I'll zoom in there. See the hair and everything. I mean, it's super high quality. Now here's another sculpture. This is a Zach Max sculpture, and I was at the max shutter speed, f2.0. It was really bright out, so I had to lower the exposure a little bit. This was slightly overexposed when I originally took it. But again, you could see the sharpness and clarity and color and everything is just very, very good. And here's what the original image looked like, just to show you. And here's what that punch and fill I was telling you about. Backed off the highlights a little bit. So here at f2, you can see, again, just incredible quality. I mean, there's no fringing. You don't see anything. It just looks very, very good. Sharp across the board. And here's the same exact shot, just at f4. And you can see f4, the exposure was a little more accurate because the shutter speed slowed down. So it does look a little bit better at f4 for sure, but that was pretty much user error on my part. I should have had an ND filter when I was shooting wide open outside like that, but whatever. It's still fine for a test shot. And here's another one, f2.0. Zoom in so you can see the detail. It's really good. And you can see the depth of field fall off is there at f2. See the tree in the background and the tire starting to go out of focus there. You can see this one's at f2.8. Looks very similar. It definitely did get a little bit sharper. And here's one at f5.6. And it looks excellent. I mean, it's fantastic. Super, super sharp lens. And if you look at the background here, let me go back to f2.0. You can see how the background, you know, it obviously falls off and gets much more blurry due to the depth of field there. f2 versus f5.6. And here's just another one of the Zach Max sign there. Pretty much as close as I could get. So that's what we're looking at for the real world photos. All right, let's wrap this review up, guys. That is pretty much it for this review. I mean, at the end of the day, the Sigma lens is an excellent performer. It's got really good build quality. It looks really cool. The focus ring is absolute butter. I mean, it feels like a fluid ring on there, which is nice. Just, again, showing the build quality. It's got the rubber gasket on the back for weather sealing. It's a metal design, so it feels like a little brick in your hand. So it's a very, very nice lens. It reminds me of the more old school lenses, like the old Minolta lenses and things like that, or a more modern, like Zeiss Loxia lens, for example. The Batis lenses have that metal build. It's like a higher end build. So it does feel good in the hand, and it looks really cool too. As far as optics go, they're really good as well, very sharp. There is a little bit of fringing there you saw on the quarter at the minimum focus distance, but in the real world, there's not really any fringing that you could see on the sample photos I took. Even in the high contrast areas, it looked really, really good. So the lab, you take it for what it is. It's a great baseline test, especially when you saw it compared to the Sony 35mm, which actually performed a little bit better in the lab as far as distortion and fringing are concerned. If you're in the market for a 35mm lens, I would still consider the Sony 35mm f1.8 lens. It's $100 more than the Sigma currently at the current prices. So, but it is smaller. It's got a faster aperture. It's more, more compact, and it's just, in my opinion, a better option for the 35mm, for a full frame camera. Although I do really like this lens, I enjoyed using it. And if you need a manual aperture ring, and this is a really good option as well. Like I said, the optics are great. The image quality is awesome, as you saw. The autofocus works really well. It's silent. I mean, you can't hear it at all when I was doing the focus testing in the lab. I was very impressed with that, and it was smooth transitions too, worked pretty well. It did stop when I was trying to come back to the quarter, but that's really not that big of a deal. If I was a little further away from the quarter, it probably would have worked fine. It's very well designed and engineered. It feels great in the hands, and it looks really cool as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you need a 35mm and you want a cool looking lens, as opposed to the Sony lens, doesn't look quite as cool, you could say, I'd get this one. Otherwise, I would get the Sony lens. It's faster, more compact, and lighter weight and so forth, has a better minimum focus distance. It's got a couple advantages over the Sigma, other than, of course, the $100 additional cost. But so anyways, let me know if you have any questions. I really hope you got what you were looking for in this review. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if you thought this video was useful. And please stay tuned for future videos. I got more stuff coming soon, so I will catch up with you guys next time. Take care, have a good day, and be safe out there, all right?